Hey guys, vlog number 39. And this is a Friday vlog. That's right. It is 7:55 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on November 27th. And I got to thinking, who are my favorite captains in Star Trek? Right? How would I rank my favorite captains or the captains when it comes to Star Trek? And I realize amongst Star Trekkers, this can be very controversial. So hopefully I don't ruffle any feathers by saying what I say. And I'll definitely give reasons why I like the captains, my favorite captains, the way that I like them. My first favorite captain is going to be Jean-Luc Picard. He was a diplomat. He was probably one of the most thought out, thoughtful characters, great actor, and Sir Patrick Stewart. He was the one that honestly got me more into Star Trek than anyone. And so for that reason, he's definitely going to be my favorite number one captain. And I guess generally as these go is you do a countdown from your least favorite to your best. But I'm going to do the other way. My second favorite captain, I would say after that, would probably be Christopher Pike. That's right, Strange New World. Even though there's a lot of history between the Star Trek: The Next Generation and Strange New World, I really can't beat Christopher Pike as being my favorite captain now. He definitely isn't exactly like Picard, but at the same time, he's not a Kirk, which, spoiler alert, is not my favorite captain. He's probably one of my least favorite captains. Pike definitely, I mean, the most I knew about him came from the pilot series for the original series. And so the fact that it's a series that's kind of a prequel chronologically in the order of Star Trek and what we've got in terms of content, but in as far as actual captains and the fact that they decided to bring these voyages to life, it really is one of my favorite series next to TNG, and he's definitely one of my favorite captains. So Christopher Pike is number two. As far as my third favorite captain, this one was pretty tough because there has been a lot of content, since the Next Generation. But I would say number three is definitely going to be Avery Brooks, and that's Captain Benjamin Sisko. This was a series that, kind of like the Next Generation, I wasn't necessarily sure I was going to like. First of all, it doesn't happen on a spaceship. It happens at a space station, which is a little bit of a different way of, at least for me, consuming Star Trek. But I think it also helped me develop an appreciation and understanding for not only just good and great acting, but also scene setting and writing and being able to do something in terms of bringing my mind to a different place in terms of not just what is out there and what we could discover on our journey, but also what can come to us and the ways that we can process that and learn about that. And I thought Sisko did a great job as a single father, a widower, a guy that was definitely kind of almost the antithesis, if that's the correct terminology, but almost an opposite of Captain Picard in a way. He was certainly a diplomat in terms of a Federation officer, and he didn't start off as a captain. He was very much more willing to kind of set against the principles that I think Picard would have gone in a lot of situations, and therefore he definitely became one of my favorite captains. So he's captain number three. My last two is I know this may seem kind of weird, because there's not a whole bunch of captains, but I would say probably my favorite is going to be Captain Kirk. Yeah, so number 4 is going to be Captain Kirk. You might have thought it was going to be Janeway, but as much as I was not much of a fan of Kirk, I do appreciate the fact that without William Shatner, Star Trek would not exist at all. He definitely, at a time that Star Trek needed him to be birthed to begin with, because it was really up against a lot of things that, quite frankly, I don't think that without Shatner in his role, it would have even been accepted long enough to even have gotten to only the 3 seasons that it eventually got to. And so, while William Shatner, like I said, you could take him and leave it. I think Captain Kirk was also very legendary in terms of the way that he was as a captain in some of the better episodes of the original series, and of course the films. So I would definitely put Captain Kirk at number 4. And number 5 is going to be Janeway. And the reason that Janeway kind of comes in at number 5 for me, and that's going to pretty much be the last in my list of captains, Janeway is probably number 5, mostly because there were things that she did which, while I would say it was admirable, it was definitely situational, it was definitely a fish out of water, being in 70,000 light years away from any Federation space and kind of doing it on her own. The thing that I didn't really enjoy so much was the fact that some of the opportunities and some of the scripts that there were really kind of fell flat. I think there was a lot of opportunity for character development, not just with her character alone, but with a lot of those who supported her and were around her. And I kind of felt more or less, unlike the other captains, she had to pretty much do it alone as well. I mean, she had Chakotay, she had this kind of this banded together group of officers on Voyager, but at the same time, I think that the opportunities to kind of explain or even go into further depth about not only her character but the relationship of those around her, which I think was just as important with the other captains as well. If you'll notice, that's kind of a very important thing for me in terms of my list, is that, from Picard all the way down, I think almost all of the captains had at least a group that was with them that they also had very much a great backstory, a great deal written about them. And while you knew a lot about the captains and how they did what they did, you also had an appreciation for the crew and those that were around them as well. And so when it came to Janeway, she made a lot of mistakes. I think she did a lot of things that I didn't like, and understandably the circumstance was quite contrary to a lot of the other situations that I mentioned. She was 70,000 light years away from the Federation. She had to do the best that she could. It's just that some of the season's episodes really were kind of unfortunate. And I know something that people kind of bring up is the Borg and it being kind of Borg centric, which I didn't necessarily have a problem with. I just sometimes didn't feel as though some of the interactions, like for example, whether it was with Kes before she had left after the 3rd season, or 7 of 9 Jerry Ryan, who did a fantastic job as 7 of 9, but I think that there were a lot of missed opportunities in between. And I think some of the criticisms I've heard is that, obviously the shift and change happened for the reasons other than maybe some of the things people traditionally view as Star Trek, meaning some of the salaciousness, the some of the eye candy, if you will, and I don't want to lay that at the feet of just the producers or any actors or characters. It's just that I think that that's kind of always been part of Star Trek, even from the very beginning. And I think you can have a lot of criticisms about that as well. But I think the thing that mostly kind of obscures it, kind of makes you forget or not, I won't say not notice, but not care about the string and the ship, right? Or the eye candy or the obvious ways to try to market it in a way that would bring a fandom into or draw people in. I think those things can be understood or at least explained in a way that makes sense for it. I mean, it's a show, and if people aren't watching, then it doesn't matter how great you do everything else, But at the same time, if you're going to get people into seats or you're going to get people to watch, you got to have something for them to see, and you have to have characters that they're going to like, and you're going to have a story, I think, that's well written and well acted to keep them there. And it's when it came to Janeway being my favorite character, I don't think that it failed for any of the reasons that I just mentioned specifically. It's just that when it came to Janeway specifically, I think as a captain, she did about as well as she could for the development that she had. But when it came, times, and opportunities for it to kind of lean on exactly why she was the captain, why they should listen to her, or, why she would make the decisions that she would make, I think a lot of it didn't have enough follow through. I think the ending, I was happy that they got home. I'm glad that they didn't leave the series in some kind of limbo and do they don't they get home type of thing. I'm glad that they did, but I think her character, along with everything else that she had, pretty much reflected what we got in the end, which to me, it didn't make a lot of sense in many ways. Like I said, I was happy. I cheered. I was glad that they made it home. But in terms of just captains overall, I think that she kind of failed in terms of her leadership more than I think with the other captains that I mentioned. But under the circumstances and conditions, I think it was understandable too. Like I said, but the reason she's number 5 is because I can think of all of the other captains that I mentioned, and I can't imagine any of them doing the kinds of things that she did in terms of her ability to run the ship, her ability to get them home, and that sort of thing. And so, like I said, she wasn't a bad character. She's not a terrible captain, but for my list, I'm going to give her a number 5. No captain is perfect, no character is perfect, because that's, I think, kind of, beside the point. I don't think there's ever supposed to be a perfect. I'm not exactly sure whether or not that would be a story at all if everything was fine and everything worked out and, nothing that you expected to happen or didn't expect to happen was exactly the way that you wanted it. I think the part of the journey of a story is you kind of find where it goes and where it in the end end up. And so, yeah, that's my list for favorite captains this Friday in this vlog. And if you have disagreements, put them down there. If you think maybe I kind of missed, I'm not as clear, or maybe there's a bias, maybe there's a bit of me being naive or something like that when it comes to my favorite captains, go ahead and let me know. I know that there's other captains as well, Captain Archer, and the new Captain Michael, but I haven't seen enough of the episodes to feel comfortably to place them in any list. So while they might be great captains, I haven't seen enough of them. Sulu was a captain for one movie, but I wouldn't necessarily put him on the list either because, he wasn't. I really didn't get a chance to see what he did. I think, there's obviously some other captains that have come. I mean, Captain Riker. I didn't get a chance to see him in any real capacity as a captain. And when Captain Picard, Star Trek Picard came out, he was already an admiral, and I think the thing that I mostly yearned for when knowing about the books was the fact that I unfortunately never got to read, or never, I must say not got to. I mean, I wasn't deprived of it, but I never read the Titan series in the book form, and whether or not that's canon or not is interesting to me. But like I said, that's also why he's not on the list. So the list isn't potential captains; it's captains, and it's got to be captains that I've actually seen and watched, and that kind of thing. So my list isn't perfect. I'm not saying that I'm never wrong, and I'm not saying that it's definitive, but those are my favorite captains and the reasons why. I might go into a little bit of that some other time, but for this Friday vlog, that's what I wanted to do as far as, since Star Trek is my favorite series. So until next time, glad you come along on this journey, and we're getting closer now towards every day towards the end of the year, the end of 2024. And I will say that if I'm introduced to some points, if someone does comment, if someone does point me into some directions as to why maybe my list, I'm overlooking or, whatever, I'd love to hear it. So until then, this is going to be the Friday vlog, and thank you for listening. Until next time, take care.